Welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I am Susan Campbell. Really just so excited about this episode today. So I want to bring our guest in right now, Jill Schlesinger, CBS News Business Analyst, podcast host extraordinaire. Jill, I have to fangirl a little bit for a second. I listen to your podcast.
All right, do it.
I listen to your podcast every single day on my drive into work. My drive is a little bit longer than your podcast, so I've gone back in the archives too. So now I'm like listening to older episodes, and you just provide such entertainment for me, and I have so much fun, and I learn a lot every single morning.
Well, I thank you for that, and it is actually besides talking to you right now, the podcast, Jill on Money, which is Monday through Friday, and Money Watch on Saturdays and Sundays. My favorite part of everything I do because I get to talk to real people, like people who are listening and watching this, or viewers who are like, "Oh, I have a deeper dive question than you can get into after 2 minutes on network or 3.5 minutes with you guys." So it's great fun, and it kind of also is like a reality check sometimes because people will like reset me. Like I think something is important. They're like, yeah, that's not important to me. And so it does really help me with the other part of my job, which is what people care about, anything that impacts their own financial life. And so that's kind of like my guiding principle. Like whatever I do, whatever I talk about, I've got to relate it to like how this matters to somebody watching or listening.
And that is so critical. Money affects all of us. This is how the world kind of goes around. One of the things that is so important to a lot of people is preparing for college. FAFSA, getting financial aid for college. My goodness, it feels like a potentially daunting task. This is something you speak about a little bit with people who are kind of getting into that zone. First of all, we want to talk about let's just define it first, because I hate when people talk in acronyms and like maybe we miss out on what it is. The free application for federal student aid. What is the FAFSA? Who needs to fill this out?
Think of it as the gateway drug to getting money for college. That's kind of it. Okay. And so what do I mean by that? There is this big form through the federal government, but that form is also used for states and colleges themselves to kind of take an inventory of who you are, who the student is, how much money you have for education, and how much money they're going to eventually dole out to you in terms of what you would qualify for. So it's really important. I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. And when I think back, 100 years ago when I was actually a financial planner, going back like more than 20 years, we used to sit with our clients and help them actually complete the FAFSA form because it was dreadful. I mean, it was the worst. And now I'm happy to say 2 decades later, it's a lot easier. So a lot of people get freaked out about it. It's almost like, it's like taxes, It's like, oh, I hate doing this. Oh, it's a pain in the neck. It kind of is, but it's gotten a lot better. So your gateway drug, the way you get access to it is you've got to actually start by going to studentaid.gov. So studentaid, all one word, .gov. That's the website, that's the portal for all federal loans, and the FAFSA form can be found there.
Okay, so what kind of information is the FAFSA actually taking into account? Like, is it looking at mom and dad's every single bank account, every single retirement account? Like, what is going into this formula?
Open up. You are going to be basically widening your world and saying, yes, it's all me. It's all here. So, I mean, look, they're going to look at everything because, by the way, there are people who are trying to kind of move money around and say, this is for college, this is not. But really what the government wants to know is how much money do you have saved? How much do you earn? And how much money has been saved already, maybe in the potential student's name. So really going back to prepare to complete a FAFSA form, when you go to studentaid.gov, you will create a unique ID. And then you should just kind of gather up a lot. And you'll have a lot of this. You'll gather up the same kind of information that you have when you're preparing your tax returns. It would be helpful if you have any, like a current account value for, say, a 529 savings account, or money that is actually in a student's name. And just to kind of shine a bright light on this, what you may not realize is it's great to save money for your kid, but money that's in the kid's name, whether it's in a 529 plan or in that kid's name, just a custodial account, that money kind of counts against you more than an asset held just jointly in the parent's name or in a grandparent's name. And the reason is the college and the government will presume that money that is in one of these accounts is fully available to help pay for college. Whereas you can imagine, say, you have a couple, they've got 3 kids, they have a joint account. You're not necessarily, the college is not saying all of that money is available for college. So there's a whole intricate formula that they use inside. But for you, gather your documents, get ready to start, and know that even though it is kind of a pain in the neck, especially for the first one, unless you complete this form, you are simply taking yourself out of the process. I almost feel like we should rename the FAFSA form and we should call it like find the money form.
Ooh.
Because that's what you're doing. We want to find the money for college.
Yeah, people would do it if it was that. So when we are talking through all of this stuff, you're mentioning, the formula might change if it's 529 versus some other asset. Brings up the question, should we be socking away a whole boatload of money in the 529s, or is there a different strategy that makes a little bit more sense?
Let's back up a second. When I talk to the folks who come on the pod, okay, or my radio show, what they'll say to me is like, my kid's 3 years old and I'm going to save for in a 529 account. That's great. But I think that when you're having these conversations as a family, it is important to prioritize the family's financial soundness before the individual child's. And that's hard for parents. I'm only mother of terriers, and I know that's hard for parents. And so I think what you need to consider is that you say to yourself, okay, I'd like to try to help my kid for college. I'll come back and say, all right, you're young, you're working, you're starting out. Do you have an emergency reserve fund of 6 to 12 months of your living expenses in a safe money market, savings, CD, high yield savings? Have you established that? If you have not established that, don't put money away for your kid yet, because that is like your ground zero of financial security, creating your own financial safety net. Number 2, have you paid off your credit card debt? Have you paid off a high interest auto loan? Have you paid off your higher interest student loans? It's really clear to me that there are a lot of parents and even grandparents who are still paying their own student loans while they're trying to save for their kids' college. I wouldn't do that. I would prioritize that debt pay down first.
Well, it's
and the third,
I was going to say, it's just
yes,
different competing strategies. I mean, you're throwing a little bit here, a little bit there, and you never make any progress.
Yeah, and we know that the cost of these loans is not cheap. A lot of student loans now are 5, 6, 7%. That's real money. It's it's not like you're borrowing at 0% or 1%. So I think it's important to prioritize that. And the third thing, I call this Jill's Big Three because, an emergency reserve fund, paying down of outstanding consumer or student loan debt. The third thing is, are you contributing to your retirement account? Here's the thing, gang. I know you want to help your kids, but if you don't save for retirement, those kids are going to have to take care of you, and nobody wants that. Once you have those 3 things taken care of, I'm using my 401k. I'm not just doing it up to the match. I'm putting 10 or 15% away. Now you're in the position like, okay, sure, I could put money away for my kid. So your questions, that's a long-winded answer, just to reframe it, that your question being, is it even worth it to save for your kid? The answer is yes, absolutely. But those other priorities should take precedence. They really should. And if you are going to save for college, the single best way to save for college is a Section 529 plan offered through each state. The money that you put in, you don't get any tax benefit. You put an after-tax dollar in. The money grows until the kid goes to college. When the kid is ready to go to school, you pull that dollar out. There's no tax due. No, zero, none. And that tax efficiency is why the 529 account is the most powerful way to save for education.
And it's gotten better over the years. I mean, there was a conversation where, a few years ago, even people were reluctant to put money into the 529s because if the kid chooses not to go to college or something happens and we don't need that money because they got a full scholarship and everything's taken care of, now there's a little bit more flexibility. Can you talk about that piece of the puzzle?
Yes, this is from the Secure Act 2.0. Yes, I knew you had that bookmarked. I'm pretty sure, but this was a this was a law that was passed. And the Secure Act was basically a retirement act that was passed, and this was the second phase of it. And there was some concern, and I get that because unused money in a 529 account, if you had it, like let's just say, your kid's a unicorn, a tuba player who's also a quarterback and got a free ride. And,
Sounds
you're
like
like,
a cool kid.
I know, right? Okay, so I don't need the money. So what would have happened under the old rules was, okay, the money that was in there could be used, you could spread it out to other kids. That's important. So, like you have 3 kids. If one of your kids is the unicorn, you can take the unused money from that 529 account, use it for the other 2 who are just normies like the rest of us. Okay. So that's one thing. You could also use it for yourself, by the way. If you wanted to go back to school, you could use the 529 money. But other than that, you'd take the money out and you'd have to pay the tax on the accumulation and a small penalty. And it would have been as if you were just investing in a brokerage account along the way. Also, if there was any state tax benefit to using your 529 account and you claimed it, you would have to repay that. So Secure Act 2.0 comes in and says, we get it. That's like, we want people to use the 529 plan. So how can we encourage that? Well, there's a rule now that up to $35,000 of unused 529 money can be rolled over to the beneficiary's Roth IRA account. So let's play this out. You're my daughter. I've saved, 100 grand for you. I end up using 65, 70 grand. I use it up to pay for your school. Okay. Now there's $35,000 left. I can open a Roth IRA for you, and every year can use the money that's left in that 529 account and contribute it up to whatever the Roth level is for that year. So 7,500 this year. And I do it every year until I hit that $35,000 total. So what a nice thing that you thought you were saving for college. Kid didn't need it. You can now use up to 35,000 of the unused 529 plan and help your kid get a real strong start in retirement.
That's incredible. Every state has its own 529 plan. My son was born in Rhode Island when we lived there. My daughters were both born in Arizona after we moved. And they have 529s, not great balances, but they exist. In Arizona, my son still has his plan in Rhode Island. Is there a benefit to shopping around by different states or plans, or is it okay to just leave things where they are?
First of all, I had no idea you lived in Little Rhodey. I lived there for some period of time. We'll talk after and we'll do some gossip about the biggest little state in the union.
The best little place in the whole world.
Yeah. Although I always say that the Rhode Island is like, you've heard of sin taxes, like you have to pay an extra tax on alcohol or cigarettes. I used to say living in the state of Rhode Island, you have to pay a pleasure tax. There's very high taxes, but it's a very pleasurable place to live.
There you go.
So now here's the thing. I have a 529 from Rhode Island. The question is, should I move it? You can move it, by the way. The benefit for you, for each person, depends on the state where you live. Like in your Arizona plan, is there a state deduction available to using the state's 529 plan?
There is, but I think they'll take the deduction from any state's plan.
Okay. So what I would do there are ways to compare different 529 plans, but it may make sense for you to say, hey, you know what? I have a Rhode Island plan. I don't know. They used to have a terrible plan in Rhode Island. I can't remember who does it now, but you might say, I have a plan in Rhode Island. It's not a great plan. I want to move it to the Arizona plan because they use much cheaper funds. And you can go online. You can say, like, what are the best 529 plans in the country? The ones that have often gotten a lot of notoriety are the ones that have the cheapest fund family managing it. So like a Fidelity or a Vanguard or a T. Rowe Price, because the cost of investing inside of those accounts is really low. But no matter what, if I live in Arizona and I only get a benefit for contributing to an Arizona plan, absolutely only use the Arizona plan. Absolutely. And, other states, if you're, I know you guys have, I've heard you have a few snowbirds out there.
Just a
Um,
few.
you should talk to, if you're grandparents and you're wanting to open a 529, you talk to the parents because sometimes there are really strong state programs for college they sit alongside a 529 plan. So like Florida has a very interesting program about contributing and being able to go to a Florida school for a very low cost. In Texas, they have a plan that's like a very state focused plan. If you stay in school here, here's what happens. But what is most important is whatever money that's going in there, just know, as we're talking about financial aid, that money is going to be presumed by the school that it will be used up. And there's been a couple of changes to how schools and the federal government assess need. It used to be, you're going to be bummed out about this. It used to be there was like a benefit by saying, hey, I've got 3 kids and 2 of them are in college at the same time. That used to give you a little bit of a break. It no longer gives you a break.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
That's
You should have
terrible
spread
news.
those. But you know what? You know why most people don't get financial aid is they don't complete the form. And it's not just, I've talked to people who have said to me, like, we make too much money. I'm like, you'd be surprised. There are some state programs, there are some institution specific plans where you might get money, but I'll tell you how you absolutely will not get money by not completing the form. So I'm not saying, listen, if you make $500,000 a year, you're not getting financial aid, and nor should you. But I'm just saying that if you're making money and you're putting a lot of money into your retirement account, and it looks like when the school looks at you and your family, takes into account different things, then you might qualify. But you will not get money if you don't start with the FAFSA form.
I think for a lot of families, there is just, a little bit of uncomfortability about talking about finances, especially with my maybe 17-year-old who's getting ready to go to college. Does my 17-year-old now have access to all of my financial information? Do they know my salary, my husband's salary? Like, how does this conversation go with the FAFSA too?
Okay. I'm gonna chide you a tiny bit.
Okay.
But I love you.
Okay.
So I only do this out of love.
Okay.
So what I really hope is for parents, for families to have conversations about funding college when the kid is a freshman in high school. Okay. Here's why. What I would hope that a family can do is sit down and say, how much money are we willing to help you out with when it comes to college, and articulate that to the kid? Because let's just say you have 3 kids, you've got your kid's a freshman, and you or your husband loses a job. You have to be able to say to the kid, look, we had hoped we could do a lot more. This is what we think we can do. We can help you with, some portion of a state school. That's what we can do, right? And for others, it might be, we can help you up to a certain amount, regardless of where you go, but you're on the hook for the rest of this. And these loans can be pernicious. You've heard horror stories about kids who are graduating with $100,000 of student loan debt. It'll take them 15 or 18 years to actually pay that off. So one thing that I try to help people realize is that, when you're thinking, how much money can I really contribute? Think about for your parent and you say, all of the borrowing for all of my children, including co-signing a loan, has to be under my total income as a household. So if you make $120,000 as a household, I don't want you going to co-sign loans for $40,000, $50,000 for each of your 3 kids, because that's where you're going to get into trouble. And alongside that, I think a good rule of thumb for the student, him or herself, is to say, okay, you're going to have some debt. That's fine. But the total debt that you have for 4 years should be under your anticipated first year of salary. So for a lot of kids starting out, their first year salary might be $50,000, $60,000. Don't go borrowing $120,000. That is a recipe for disaster. You know what we know? We know graduating with a college degree can be an advantage over your work life. But the the advantage starts to dissipate if you borrow too much money to get that degree.
So many good, easy to digest points. Jill, I could ask you a million questions all day long. I'm not going to do that because I do know you're very busy. Just want to quickly hit on the fact that the FAFSA does have deadlines, and there are different deadlines. In our state, there's an AZ Promise Scholarship. That deadline's coming up April 1st for the following year for 26-27 funding. So these are things that people need to keep in mind and get it done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought this up because a lot of people will be like, oh, I have till June 30th for FAFSA, which you do for federal loans. But each state and each school has a different deadline. And you know what happens? If you don't apply as early as you can, you might miss the deadline. And also, if you apply earlier than you need to, you may have the ability to get some of those dollars. But a lot of these are just programs with a chunk of money set aside. And if you are late in trying to apply, you're not getting those dollars. So try to just take a deep breath. The FAFSA form is real. It used to be more than 100 questions. It's now as few. It can now be like as few as 18 for some people. But like, let's just even say there's 30. It's gotten so much better. Work your way through it. Get that form completed, start applying for the money, and get a sense of really what you are entitled to. Don't freak out if you get nothing, because you can only do what you can do. So if you don't get anything and there's no loan available, no FAFSA, you're not getting a Pell Scholarship, you make too much money, go to the school, get your kid involved, go on the hunt, find the money.
Let's find some scholarships then if we can't get the aid. Jill, if people want to find your podcast that I love and listen to every single day or anything else that you're doing, obviously they can find you on CBS Mornings and Evening News. What are the websites really quickly?
So just go to jillonmoney.com. That is my website. You can, wherever you listen to your podcasts, including this one, you can subscribe to Jill on Money. You can subscribe to Money Watch and shoot me a note because on my website I have a little contact us button, and that's where we field questions every single day.
I'm such a fan. Thank you so much for your time. You're always a wealth of information for us, and you've kind of inspired me to just get a plan going on.
That's it. Sounds great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can. Send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile news app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock, and every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.